Well, see, my grandmother, the first Sunday school teacher that she ever had was Joe Henson. And you know who Joseph Henson was? Well, he was the Uncle Tom of Uncle Tom's Cabin. That was Joseph Henson. And that would be, see, she was 7 years old. She was born in 1849. And 7 years old, this would be 1856, wouldn't it? She used to walk from Dresden. Uncle Tom's Cabin is about 3.5 miles outside of Dresden. And it's still there. I don't know but what you and your granddad was around to see it when you were out through that part of the country.
I know it's there. I've never been to it.
Well, that's still a log cabin, and you got the same compound. Well, he used to teach a Sunday school there. He was quite a religious old boy, along with all the other things that he was. After my grandmother grew up and met my grandfather and got married, then they lived at Buxton for a number of years. I think I put that on the other tape there. Well, when I first began to question what things were going on, my grandmother had the whitest kitchen floor that I ever saw anyplace. It was bone white, if you know what I mean, not snow white, but bone white. And it was big, wide, 12 to 14-inch maple boards with a real old dirt crack in between them, and it was a dirt crack. It wasn't imitation paint or anything. It was actually dirt that was swept down in between the boards or washed in there. Well, these slaves used to reach their freedom, they'd get down as far as the old Walkerville ferry at Joseph Compa, and if they could manage to get across, if not, a lot of them swam the river, or they'd meet them with small boats and take them across the river from there into Walkerville, which is a suburb of Windsor there. And then they'd hit the cornfields or the ditches or the woods, and there was plenty of woods and stuff. And they'd sleep in the woods and the cornfields by day and then travel by night. And when they'd get to Chatham, Lake Chatham, that's where old John Brown had his, where he had an estate there, or a home, or a halfway house that they used to stop at and get something to eat. And that was on Adelaide Street at King, right next to CPR tracks, and only about 3 blocks from where my dad and mother used to live, where your great-grandfather and great-grandmother used to live on Adelaide Street. There's a big old flat brick house, 1 story, no basement, rambling old brick. Well, then they'd, to get to Henderson at Dresden, that was a 17-mile hike from Chatham across to Dresden. Well, my grandmother's place was halfway. The farm there was just halfway between Chatham and Dresden. And some of these nights were pretty bad. They were stormy, they were snowy or blowy or rain or what have you. So they'd make my grandmother's house, and she had this big old kitchen. It was about a 30-foot long kitchen with a door in each end of it, and a big old stove in one end, and the cupboards and the eating table in the other end, and another big long bench it was a bench table up against the wall that carried the pail of water and the wash basin and all that type of thing. And she would let them come in this kitchen, and they'd lay on the floor, go to sleep on that old hard floor and everything. And the walls were in the kitchen were just boarded up. They didn't use it too much in the wintertime, only as a storing place because it wasn't insulated. It was clapboards on the outside, sheeting on the inside, and then papered over on the inside. So there wasn't too much insulation there. But they would manage to cook their meals and do the laundry and everything in the kitchen and then carry it into the other part of the house to eat in the dining room. Well, she could accommodate as many as 15 slaves there on this kitchen floor. They just sleep all over the floor like a bunch of pigs in a pig pen, and they lay close enough together to keep warm. Well, then before they would leave the next morning, before they'd go, they had to scrub everything in that kitchen with soft soap. You know what soft soap is or how it's made? Well, wood ashes is all taken out of the stove and the fireplace and put in a hopper that's built like a trough, a big, huge trough, like a big vat. Only it's shaped like a trough. There's a draining spout at the bottom. You put all these ashes into that, and then all your greasy dishwater and all the grease from the cooking, from the rendering of the fat from the animals or the pigs, anything that you don't want, in a line of grease. It might be sour cream. It might be anything that's got grease in it. You throw it on these ashes, and as it drips through these ashes, and of course it's outside where it gets rained on and everything else, and the rain and the water keeps the ashes wet all the time. And as this juice drips down through there and hits the bottom, then it runs out and into a cotton receptacle there. And that is soap that'll take the skin right off a hog. You don't have to scald a hog if you want to take the hair off him. Why, you can wash him in that straight. Of course, to wash clothes or wash your hands in, you dilute it about 10 times with water before you dare wash in it, But it'll take grease or anything else off it. So they had to scrub this kitchen floor with it. She'd mix up a bucket of soft soap and suds for it and put it in the big old tub there, a big old brass tub. And they had to take the mop and scrub that old kitchen before they left in case they were, well, as she used to say, in case they were lousy. She didn't want any of their lice. And she said you didn't have to worry about anything else they might carry either, that that'd kill anything they had. That's why these boards were so white, and I never could understand for 2 or 3 years from the time I was about big enough to notice anything. I was about 4 to 6 years old before they ever told me why them boards were so white. I guess they didn't want it to publicize around like a kid will open his mouth when he's not supposed to, and let some of the authorities know that she was giving aid to runaway slaves or something. You might get in a lot of trouble that way with the authorities. So she'd start them all out with a big slice of homemade bread and a cup of tea, and that was their rations. And they'd leave 10 cents a head. Whatever number there was, they got 10 cents a head for letting them sleep on the floor all night. So that covers about all there was to that. I mean,
Was there slavery in Canada at that time?
No, that was where they were free once they got across the border.
Yeah. Well, why would she have to worry about trouble from the authorities in Canada?
Well, let's put it this way. Why did we have to worry about the Fenians in Canada at one time? You know what the Fenians were? Fenian raids in Canada? Well, that was after the Civil War. And there was a whole band of Americans banded together down in Kentucky, thousands of them, and they were going to take Canada. And they came, yeah, that was the Fenian Raiders. And they came across and tried to take Canada. They got the hell whipped out of them, but They never did take it, and it wasn't backed by the American government or by the what do you say, the Lincoln government or whatever it was. It was just to ban the Southern rebels that decided if they couldn't have their slaves there, they'd go and take Canada and run their slaves there. You see, that was when I say they. Maybe I'm using the wrong language when I say the authorities, but they. What do we say? They didn't call them criminals those days, but anyway, they rebellious. The rebellious element, let's put it that way, are the ones that disapproved of it. You can, you can stick your own language in there any way that you like, or help me out with that part of it. But that's what it was all about. It wasn't that they're afraid that the British Crown or the Governor General or anybody was going to bring anything against them. But it was, you see, Chatham's pretty close to Detroit here right now. It's you know how you make it now, and even back those days, why you could make it from when my great grandfather used to carry the mail between Windsor and London. That was just a day's trip down